Hey yo, Algebra, how's it going today? It's Friday. That's always a good thing, right? You guys only have 2 weeks other than Eli. Sorry, Eli, you got one more year yet. But other than Eli, you guys only have 2 weeks after today of your eighth grade career left. How crazy is that? Looking forward to graduation, but been missing seeing you guys too. Hopefully things are going well at home. All right, today what I'm going to do for our video is just do a few of the problems from the worksheet with you. I think most of you got this pretty well yesterday. I'm continuing my pattern of doing 2 lessons a day because we've already made it past 2 lessons per lesson because we've already made it past where we needed to technically get for high school next year. But hey, it doesn't hurt to get some of these skills that you're going to need in your math classes next year too. And then on top of that, it's just harder for me to know exactly how everything went ahead of time until I see your first lesson. So I think it went really well. Let's just do a couple out of the worksheet together today and get you going that way, okay? So notice on the top part, they just want you to state the excluded value. Remember, the excluded value is what makes the denominator 0, because we can't have a 0 in our denominator. You can't divide by 0, right? So let's just do a couple. What would make my denominator 0 here? Well, if it's just x on the bottom, then that's your excluded value, 0. But for like number 2, notice what would make my denominator 0? 2, right? If I put a 2 there, 2 minus 2 would give me 0. So that's how you do that top section. That's going to go really fast. This bottom section will take a little longer, but this won't even take you all that long either. Remember, they want you to first identify the asymptotes, right, and put dotted lines on them because that's going to help you graph them, and then do actually graph them, right? So we're going to get our vertical and our horizontal asymptotes. Remember, our vertical or x asymptote is whatever the x is that makes the bottom 0. Well, in this case, it's just going to be 0, right? And then our y is whatever's right here. Now notice nothing is here right now, so our y asymptote is also 0. So if I put dotted lines, it doesn't even really make sense to really do that because it's just going to be 0, 0. Okay, and then when we graph these things, we just have to remember to curve and not actually touch those asymptotes, right? So let's pick a couple x values, right, that are on both sides of this x asymptote. That's what you should always do, right? So I'll give myself a few blanks. All right. So if 0 is our asymptote, what if we just go like 1, 2, 3? And then what if we go like -1, -2, -3, okay? So if I put 1 there, 1 divided by 1 is just 1, right? If I put a 2 there, I get 1/2. If I put a 3 there, I get 1/3, so like 0.333, right? Okay, if I put a -1 there, I get -1, -0.5, and then -0.3, right? So now if I graph this 1, 1, use a different color so it stands out, 1, 1, 2.5, and 3.3. So you can see the curve, right? It's going to go up to there, and it's never going to quite touch our asymptotes, so be careful. Get close to it, but never quite touch your asymptotes. And then obviously you'll get a reflection on the other side, -1, -1, right? -2.5, and then -3.3, right? So once again, it's going to get close to our asymptotes, but never quite touch, and you end up with a mirrored image graph. Let's do one that has a little more complication than that. How about like number 14? I'll make it nice and big for us here. Last one we'll do together. So we need to identify our x and y asymptotes, first of all. Remember, your x asymptote is what makes the bottom 0, so it's going to be -1 in this situation, right? And your y asymptote's always right here. Okay, and so let's put a dotted line on x equals -1. So that's our vertical asymptote, right? So I'll put a nice dotted red line there. And then y equals -1. That's going to help us curve our graphs correctly, having those asymptote lines on there. All right. Then we're going to graph this thing. So remember, when you graph, you always want to choose x values that are just above and below the x asymptote. So let's do that. So how about above? We'll do like 0, 1, and 2. How about below? We'll do -2, -3, -4. Let's try that and see where that gets us. So if we put a 0 in our equation here, 0 plus 1, 2 divided by 1 would just be 2, minus 1 is 1, right? If I put a 1 under there, 1 plus 1 is 2, so 2 divided by 2 is 1, minus 1 is 0. If I put a 2 in there, 2 divided by 3 would be 2/3 minus 1. So in other words, -1/3. Okay. Then if we put in our other x asymptotes to get the other side, these guys, If I put a negative 2 in there, just erasing so we can do that more easily. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. 2 divided by negative 1 is negative 2. Take away 1 more is negative 3, right? If I put a negative 3 in there, negative 3 plus 1. Negative 3 plus 1 gives us negative 2. 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1, right? Take away 1 more, so negative 2. And then if we put a negative 4 in there, try erasing that here. There we go. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. So negative 2/3 minus 1. So negative 1 2/3. All right, so if we put our dots on, remember we want to not touch the asymptotes, but get very close. We'll have a dot at 0, 1, right? So right here. We'll have a dot at 1, 0. And then we'll have a dot at 2, negative 1/3. So, approximately right there. And so that kind of gives us an idea of where our curve is heading. We get really close to our asymptotes, but never quite touch, right? Then on this other side, we have negative 2, negative 3, so about right here. We have negative 3, negative 2, so about right there. And then we have negative 4, negative 1 2/3, so ish right here. And so that gives us a good idea of where our curve can go and how we can get close to our asymptotes but never quite touch them. So that gives you an idea of how to do those graph ones again. I think you guys did pretty well at those yesterday. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out, but I think it's going to go real smoothly today, and we'll move on to some new lessons then next week. Have a good Friday, guys, and a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon.